The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
February 25th should have been a great day for Madeline Soto, her 13th birthday, celebrating a new phase in her life, becoming a teenager. There was a party, but her mother, Jen Soto, could not make it. But her mother's live-in boyfriend was there, Stephan Sterns, a man who had been in Madeline's life for at least a couple of years. In fact, Jen referred to him as Madeline's stepfather, even though they were not married. The next day, Jen and Stephan say Stephan gave Madeline a ride to school. They also say Madeline was embarrassed and did not want to get dropped off in front of the school, so she was dropped off at a church parking lot less than half a mile away. That's the last time they say anyone had contact with her. Investigators say the evidence paints a much different picture. They claim they have evidence of Sterns dumping Madeline's laptop and backpack in a dumpster and have images of Madeline dead inside Sterns' car. Madeline never made it to school and was found 4 days later in some brush 17 miles from their home in Kissimmee, Florida. Sterns was arrested after images of Madeline being sexually assaulted were allegedly found on his phone, some dating back to when Madeline was just 11. But at this point, there have been no charges related to her death. Tonight, we take a closer look at the story told by Madeline's mother, then take a look at the recovery scene. What will this autopsy reveal? All this as we investigate the tragic life and death of Madeline Soto.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's just not fair. It's not fair what happened to this little girl. It's beyond outrageous. Tough life. She's being tortured. She was being tortured. The allegations are that this was going on for years, this sexual abuse in this home, and it's not stopping. You know, why didn't it stop? Why didn't someone step in? Why didn't anyone know? A lot of questions tonight, but the bottom line to all of this, she only lived to her 13th birthday, and it's not fair what happened to her. Now, let's talk about Mr. Accidental Factory Reset, Sterns over here. I mean, this is the guy. He's in custody now because of what was on his phone. The phone that he accidentally did a factory reset on the day that this little girl disappeared. Like, come on. Does he really think everyone is that stupid? Like, you can't put two and two together? And by the way, how do you accidentally reset your phone? How do you do that? Explain it to me, please. I'd like to understand how that can be done accidentally. But I don't believe in coincidences. I just don't. Most of the time, they do not bear out. You can put pieces together. In all the cases and the trials we cover on Court TV, all these little circumstances, all these facts, you start putting them together and it leads in one direction. And that's what's happening here. And the question is, what happened? What happened to this little girl? When was she murdered? Where was she murdered? How was she murdered? Those questions have not been answered yet publicly. There's an autopsy. Hopefully that autopsy will reveal a lot of that information. And when I say information, I mean evidence, because every piece of information is evidence in this case. Because this just can't happen without someone being held accountable for what happened to Madeline. The other thing that's confusing me tonight is Mom, Madeline's mother. What's her story? What exactly is her story? What is she saying? What has she said? What does it mean? I don't have a clear picture yet. And obviously she's not talking anymore. Investigators are gathering up their evidence and information, so we don't know everything. But we're going to try to learn a lot more tonight. So let's start with what we know right now. about Mom's story. And it begins, let's take a look at the arrest affidavit. This is the arrest of Mr. Accidental Factory Reset. On February 26, 2024, approximately 2,000 hours, Madeline Soto, 13-year-old, was reported missing by her mother. The mother advised her daughter's stepfather, Stephan Sterns, picked her up from home and dropped her off at Hunters Creek Middle School. The mother then went to pick up Madeline from school at dismissal and learned that Madeline never showed up for school. So that's when she finds out. She goes to pick her up at the end of the day. That's when she finds out her daughter is missing. Stepdad dropped her off at school. Now, we know she's spoken publicly because this began as a missing persons case. And when she spoke with WFTV 9 down in Orlando on March 5th, or actually a report from WFTV on March 5th. This is interesting. Newly obtained documents show that the girl's mother told deputies on February 26th that she saw her daughter getting dressed for school at 8 a.m. on Monday, and Sterns then took her to school. Okay, more statements from Mom there. Now, let's take a listen to a February 27th interview, again by WFTV 9 down in Orlando with Jen Soto. Again, this is her telling her story and the story about what happened here. Let's listen.
We dropped her off at school, close to school. She wanted to walk the rest of the way. She was spotted walking by the church, by the middle school, on the cameras. They saw her hang out in the parking lot for a little bit and then get up and leave. They didn't see a vehicle or anything else. They just saw her walk away around 9 a.m. heading towards the school, but she never made it.
What was the last thing, I guess, the conversation that you two had, you and your daughter?
We spoke about her birthday party. She had a birthday party on Sunday. She had a great time. I couldn't make it because I was working, but she had an amazing time. She was so happy with all her gifts. I told her good night, and yeah, that was it. I wasn't the one who took her to school in the morning. That was my partner. But yeah, in my heart, I feel like somebody took her. This isn't like her to just pick up and run away, or just not go to school. I don't know what to think. She was last seen wearing a green hoodie, black shorts, white Crocs, a black JanSport backpack with gray hibiscus flowers on it. She got dropped off in the morning. We did not notice until after school pickup at 4 o'clock when I went to go pick her up, and she wasn't at school.
All right, when you put all this stuff together, I'm hearing some clear contradictions, some holes in the story, and some ambiguities. So I want to take some time tonight to try to clear things up as best we can at this point of this investigation.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
On the ground down to Orlando to some folks who are working this story. Joining me in Orlando, Florida, WFTV investigative reporter Shannon Butler. Shannon, great to see you tonight.
Good to see you, Vinny.
Also with us, editor of the Osceola News-Gazette, Ken Jackson, also working this story. Thank you so much, Ken, for joining us. All right, let me start here. Shannon, from your perspective, how clear is it about this birthday party that takes place on Sunday, going to school on Monday, who's in the house, who's not in the house, who's going where? Is there any clarity to what's going on there before this alleged drive to school?
Well, that's the time frame that we're still trying to piece together as we try to look at this timeline of events. We know that the birthday party happened. We know at some point she was in that home. We don't know who was in the home with her at the time because the stories have not been clear. We've talked to Stephan Sterns, we've talked to Jen Soto, and the stories weren't quite clear about what happened then. All we know is they claim that he took her to school, and that's when she had vanished.
Now, Ken, I want to put up the first contradiction that I'm seeing in some of these statements that have been made public. The affidavit states that Jen told deputies her partner, Stephan Sterns, dropped Madeline off at Hunters Creek Middle School on the morning of February 26th. When interviewed by WFTV on February 27th, Jen says Stephan Sterns dropped Madeline off near the school. What about that drive? Was that drive made? Where's he driving that morning? And is there any evidence of him being anywhere near the school that day?
Well, first of all, Vinnie, thanks for having me on. If you look closely at that map, first of all, something I want to say about that neighborhood is if you notice right there on Town Loop Boulevard, the church and the school are separated by State Road 417, which is a elevated toll road. So to say that they're really near the school, you can't see the school from the church. So there's that. And then we do have the inconsistency of, in the affidavit, the mention is that Stephan dropped her off. And then we hear from the mom that we dropped her off. So that's something that we're trying to confirm right now. I did speak informally with a member of Kissimmee Police Department on, let's see, today's third, on Tuesday night. They're now the lead agency in the investigation. I was there for an unrelated event. And I asked about any investigation that's currently going on in the mother. To tell you how tight this investigation is right now, all I was told, and I'm paraphrasing here, was that we have a focused investigation going on in order to present an airtight case to the state attorney's office. That's all the Kissimmee Police Department is saying right now.
And you need that airtight case. I mean, Shannon knows I spent a lot of time down there in Central Florida. Was it more than a decade ago? And we thought that case was airtight. All right, Shannon, here's another contradiction I'm seeing. In her interview with WFTV, Jen says, and this is what Ken just said, we dropped Madeline off for school. In the same interview, Jen says her partner, Stephan Sterns, dropped Madeline off for school. What do you make of that contradiction, the we versus like, oh no, he did it?
Well, I think at first when she told that story before we know what we know now, we just thought it was one of those conversations where you have, you know, you and your husband, you're like, oh, we dropped her off at school at 8 o'clock. But then when that affidavit came out and an initial report that says something completely different, about when she last saw her daughter, we started to go back to that interview and listen to it again. She told us twice in that interview that we dropped her off at school. And then she says, well, I didn't drop her off. My partner dropped her off. That's another thing. She calls him a partner. We've heard it's the stepdad. We've heard it's the boyfriend. Also, that's unclear about that relationship too. So we know she wasn't dropped off near her school or at school because the video evidence that the deputies have and police now have, that doesn't add up. It was nowhere near the school.
Next contradiction. Told WFTV that Madeline was spotted on camera in the church parking lot walking towards the school around 9 a.m. on February 26th. And this is what Shannon's saying. Police say video evidence leads them to believe Madeline was already deceased 8:19 a.m. on February 26th when video footage shows Stephan Sterns' car at their apartment complex and Madeline's body is visible. Ken, this was the part of that interview that confused me the most because she's referencing something about being on camera at 9 a.m. That's impossible. Do we even know if there is surveillance video at that church?
Well, we know that there is surveillance camera at the church, but we don't have, we don't, at 9 o'clock, we don't have her on that. Now, something else that we're trying to confirm right now is that we're trying to confirm, part of the affidavit was that they have it on camera that Stephan dumped some of Madeline's items, the backpack and the laptop, in a dumpster. What we're trying to confirm now is if they were found in the apartment complex where Sterns' address is listed on one of the charging affidavits. Now, that's on the west, about the northwest side of Kissimmee. Unfortunately, it's a gated community, so it's not like we can all just head on in there and look for ourselves. But they have not been able to confirm, and at least we have not been able to confirm that that's the dumpster. But that would have been a full, because I know my daughter's in 9th grade, so she just got out of middle school. So I know middle school goes in around 9 o'clock, a little after 9 o'clock. The timing from the affidavit says that they saw the car about 7:45. It dumped the items in the dumpster, and then at 8:19 they was found on camera again with what they think is Madeline inside the car. And they believe that, at least the Orange County investigators believe that she was already dead. So there's a lot of things in here that aren't adding up that we're hoping will come clear once the investigation is revealed by Kissimmee police.
Another contradiction, Shannon. Ready? Here we go. According to a WFTV report, Jen Soto told deputies she last saw her daughter 8 a.m. on Monday, February 26, getting dressed before school. But she also told you guys in an interview she last spoke to her daughter on Sunday, February 25th. So to me, this is the biggest mystery that I have. Where's mom in the morning? Who's in the house? When could this have happened? Where was the party? What time was the party? Where was mom? Did mom speak to her in person? Did she speak to her on the phone? Any clarity on any of this, Shannon?
Well, we know that her mom said that she was not at the party, and I think folks at that party confirmed that she was not there. She somehow was back in that apartment, and not for the mom to say that she had that long conversation with her about how excited she was about the party, how she liked her gifts. We have video of that birthday party. We know that the little girl did celebrate her birthday, but once she got home, that's the problem that we're having. Did you say goodnight to your daughter as you told us originally, and then someone told you that he took her to school? Because then in the affidavit or the incident report, the first responding deputies, when they talked to her, she said she saw her get dressed for school. Then she saw Stephan Sterns drive her then to school around 8:30. But remember that video evidence at 8:19, according to the sheriff's office, shows that she was likely already deceased. So if she saw her get ready at 8 and then said he took her at 8:30, it's not possible if you look at the evidence that those deputies pulled from the apartment complex. They believe at 7:35, when her backpack was dumped in that dumpster, she was likely dead then. In fact, one of the reports, it says that Stephan Sterns said that he saw her in that parking lot actually open her book bag and was digging for something. And he said, I thought it was her headphones because she was always looking for her headphones. That was the same backpack that detectives say he threw in the dumpster at 7:35 in the morning. There is video at that church parking lot, but they've never said that's actually her. They had some conversation with them early on, and they've held on to that story that she was in that church parking lot. But no one has ever said that was actually her. It was grainy video, but detectives do not believe that was her, seeing as how at 8:19 they believed she was dead.
This is, I know investigators know so much more than we do, right? They're holding back, they're putting together, as you described, that airtight case that is necessary to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. But this is just, it's not adding up. Like, it's not adding up. What she is saying and what he is saying and what he is doing and the way her story has vacillated a little, something strikes me that is just wrong here. Ken, any indication when they say investigating? Because no one's been charged in the murder, right? No one's been implicated in what happened to this girl in terms of being either, abducted or killed or wherever that happened. Is mom part of the subject of that investigation?
Well, like I said, KPD was pretty tight-lipped when I talked to him on Tuesday, but I have to believe that she's the only person who is around for this who isn't currently incarcerated. So currently, we still do not have murder charges in the case. We only have the sexual battery and the possession of child pornography charges against Stephan. But like I said, I mined for information on that the other day, and while I wasn't told that per se, I have to believe that she is part of this investigation simply because, like I said, she's not in jail. Stephan is. This is going to be a very interesting investigation when it comes out. I'm gonna tell you that.
All right, Shannon, as we sit here tonight, what's the question on the top of your mind that you want to be able to uncover the answer to? Like, what is the one thing that is really sticking in your head tonight about what happened to Madeline?
What her mother knew before her death in those 2 years where detectives say she was being abused by her boyfriend, what the mom knew then and what the mom knew in those final hours. There's a lot of question there. There's a lot of different stories. I think investigators are still trying to piece together. We're still trying to piece that together. I think until we know that, because remember, there's two separate investigations going on here, what happened before and what happened leading up to it and after. I think that they will look at the mom on both of those things. We still don't know what happened in those final hours or the hours just after Madeline was reported missing. And we don't know what the mom knew, if anything, about the 2 years, maybe even more, that her daughter was allegedly being abused.
And how about you, Ken?
Well, what I want to know is, so the investigation includes that the sexual abuse that was on Stephan's phone occurred in 2022, when the affidavit redacts the name of the victim, but it lists the date of birth and it matches Madeline's. Okay, so if it happened in 2022, number one, she was younger than 12 years old. And can we say for sure that it occurred consistently ever since 2022, so for the last 2 years? And if so, what I want to know is the mom coming from a position of being fearful as well? Like we said, like Shannon said, what did she know and when did she know it? Was she covering for Stephan? I mean, these are things that, as the parent of a 15-year-old myself, I really want us to get to the bottom of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, both of you are doing incredible work down there. Shannon Butler with WFTV. You've been gracious enough to let us share that interview that you guys did. It was amazing. Thank you so much, Shannon. Ken Jackson, Osceola News-Gazette. Keep digging, and I hope you'll both come back on because we're going to continue to cover this story.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
We have evidence that shows Stephan Sterns returning to the complex, and Madeline was visible in that vehicle. We believe she was already dead at that time.
That's a big fact, but it has not resulted in any homicide charges. Stephan Sterns in custody based on sex abuse, sex assault charges, not murder, not homicide yet. That investigation is continuing. So I want to take a look at that arrest warrant. It's graphic, absolutely graphic. They looked at the contents of his phone. Several images and videos were located, which depicted an apparent child with her upper private area, lower private area, and back private area as the focal point of pictures and videos. Sick stuff. Pictures of videos depicting an apparent child's private parts and mouth being assaulted by male genitalia. This warrant charges that they occurred August 20 of 22, when the victim was just 11 years old. So what's going on? How is she handling this? How does a child like this deal with this? Let me bring in my guest in St. Louis, Missouri, licensed mental health and nationally certified clinician specializing in trauma, child abuse, and neglect, Sharonda Brown, and psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions in Orlando, Florida. Dr. Janie Lacey is with us as well. Thank you both for being here. Sharonda Brown, I'll begin with you. What is this child going through? I mean, at a minimum, it begins at age 11.
I'm sure there was a lot of fear and anxiety, confusion at first, probably afraid for her life. And after a certain while, she becomes accustomed to it and very much used to it, very much like grooming. And if that's gone on for a couple of years, especially if the environment was agreeing, meaning if her mom knew about it and didn't do anything about it, she probably began to think that this was a way of life, but still felt very, very uncomfortable. I can imagine that as she got older, she started probably to defend herself or speak up more for herself, but we don't know that for sure. But I'm sure she started out very anxious and after a while became very used to the culture of the abuse.
Dr. Janie Lacey, they live in a house, 1,400 square feet, 2 levels. It's a nice townhome. It's not a sprawling mansion, though. The 3 of them, apparently, we know were living there. And this abuse begins allegedly in 2022 inside that house, based upon what investigators are telling us. What are your thoughts about mom and daughter, their relationship as this is allegedly going on? And would an 11-year-old tell her mom?
Well, it depends on the circumstances, Vinny. You know, depending on that relationship that she had with her mom, if it was truly built on trust and connection and love and protection and guidance, the way that us as moms should be with our children. With the absence of those things, children learn how to survive. And even the very people that should be protecting them could be the very source of danger in many certain ways. So children learn to survive. They learn to hide. They learn to split. They learn to almost compartmentalize. They learn strategies in order to deal with their circumstances. And when we look at a mother potentially who could have been a part of or known the sexual abuse of their child, herself probably had a lot of different psychological traumas and emotions that her over attachment to potentially to her boyfriend partner, right, could be based in her fear. And sometimes when we look at mothers who knew or suspected of sexual abuse of their potential child, you know, we're also looking at those denial factors. Was there dependence on this man where she almost discarded her daughter for the connection or the perceived false love of it? There's many different factors when we look at cases where a mother in particular may have known or was in denial of her child's sexual abuse.
Sharonda, I don't know if they were taking her to the doctor regularly. I know she was going to school. Are you surprised, or what is it that prevents a child from speaking out to someone, like a doctor, like a teacher, a counselor at school, or someone else about what's happening?
Most of the time it's shame or just the idea that no one's going to do anything about it. And other times it's just, you know, not thinking, hey, this is abnormal. Because if she's used to it, then she's like, okay, it's been going on for a couple of years now. Who am I going to talk to? Who's going to even believe me? Is my mom going to do anything about it? And let's just say that her mom found out and there were consequences in that household for her speaking up. She's probably going to project that reaction onto all the other officials, and that includes teachers, principals, health administrators. So it just depends on what the reaction she got when she first spoke up, if it ever came out.
And I don't know if we'll ever find out, because she was murdered. Sharonda Brown, Dr. Janie Lacey, appreciate your time and your insight tonight. Thank you so much.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.